Hare Krishna. Today we are going to summarize and revise chapter number 11 of Jaiv Dharm. The title of this chapter is Nitya Dharma and Idolatry. Idolatry. So the discussion is going to be about deity worship and idol and Nitya Dharma. It's a discussion between Muslims and non-Muslim Vaishnavas. And we have already discussed about this earlier in chapter number 5 also. And before we go into the details, let's do Guru Vandana. Om Gyan Trimandasya Gyananjan Shalakya Chakshurun Nimintam Yen Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadarshi Vasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. सर्वप्रथम my Danvat Pranam to my Diksha Guru Shri Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj Ji, and thereafter my Danvat Pranam to all the galaxy of my Shiksha Guru. There are a number of them, and I am very blessed to have the company and guidance from my Diksha Gurus. And my Danvat Pranam to all the Vaishnavas and all the listeners to this audio recording. Danvat Pranam. Now, going further, we had earlier studied about the discussion between worshipping Bhagwan Ji and Allah at the end of chapter number 5. There, if you recollect, the descendants of Qazi, Chand Qazi, he had arrived in one of the congregation in the assembly of Vaishnavas, and he started asking questions, and we were learning about this when Lahari Mashaji at that time, he asked 5 questions from the Qazi, who was a Muslim, and Lahari Masha was a Vaishnav leader, and he was very much learned in Farsi, and he took the lead, and those 5 questions, I'll just quickly go through them. The first question was, according to your ideology, he asked Qazi, what is meant by mukti? To this, Qazi replies, the relationship between the Banda and Khuda is eternal, and Mukti is actually the attainment of this relationship in its pure form. And the second question Lahari Mashaji asked Qazi was, what is the primary teaching of the Quran? To this, Qazi replies, the Lord's personal abode, which is the highest attainment in the spiritual world, is known as the Behesht. It is a fact that there is no formal worship there, yet life itself is worship, ibad. The residents of that abode are immersed in transcendental bliss simply by seeing the Lord. This is the very same thing teaching that has been presented by Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The third question asked by Lahari Masaj to Qazi was, does the Quran accept that the Lord has a transcendental form? To this, Qazi replies, the Quran states that the Lord has no form. And the fourth question Lahari Masha asked Qazi was, what is the opinion of the Sufis in this regard? To this, Qazi replies, the Sufis adhere to the doctrine of Anal Haq, which means I am Khuda. The Sufi doctrine of Islam is exactly the same as Advaita doctrine of the non-Muslims. And Lahari Masha then asked Qazi, are you a Sufi? To this, Qazi denied, no, I'm not a Sufi. And thereafter the meeting ended, and they started doing the Harinam Sankirtan, Vaishnavas over there. Now, this is the base which had happened earlier between the Muslims and the Vaishnavas earlier at the end of chapter number 5. Now, continuing this, Bhaktivinoda Thakurji, the author of this book, was also considered as the seventh Goswami, and he was a magistrate, as we all know, and had written hundreds of books. And this Jaiv Dharm is also authored by him. And in this 11th chapter, after the 5th chapter, he has taken up the topic of discussions between Muslims and the Vaishnavas as to their relationship of faith, faith in the worshipping. So the chapter goes like this. As a title, we have already discussed this. The title of this chapter is Nitya Dharma and Idolatry. Idolatry. Sorry for my pronunciation. Okay, there was a village called Kulia Paharpura village in Koladweep district of Navadvip. There, an invitation was sent by one of the Pandit devotees who was a merchant, and he had sent an invitation to all the Brahmins within the 32 miles of Navadvip Dham, and this was blessed that all the Brahmins and Pandits in that area they accepted the invitation and they all gathered together on one evening and they arrived at a place which was named as Chenadanga and they all assembled at a place of Natya Mandir, the dancing place which was adjacent to the altar where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to assemble and do kirtans. So they had as all assembled over there, and it was a very, very spiritual gathering, and they all enjoyed that gathering over there. And all of the Vaishnavas and all of the Brahmins who assembled over there, they had the tilak on their heads, and then they had the uh, what you call jap mala on their hands and they were doing kirtans and it was all very very celestial atmosphere over there and they were all enjoying the uh, congregation over there because they had been invited by the devotee who was a very much uh, merchant also and very highly blessed devotee and he had invited them and they had all assembled to them over there. So there is what these all the Brahmins over there they were chanting Mahamantra and they were also having mirdang and partals and they were doing kirtans and they were all dancing continuously and it was all very very enjoyable spiritual gathering over there and they were all enjoying it and even the ladies over there they were also astonished to see this spiritual emotions which was praised and was a good fortune for all the Vaishnavas. And as I mentioned, the Vaishnavas arrived at the Natya Mandir, dancing mandir, directly adjacent to the deity's altar. And this was where Shriman Mahaprabhu would dance and perform Sankirtan. And the poetic shlok of Shri Chaitanya Mangala were then melodiously chanted. And upon hearing the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Deva, these Vaishnavas began to manifest various types of sattvic bhav. They were in very spiritual, high level moods. But they were immediately then disturbed. They were disturbed by the doorkeeper that the chief mullah of Saseka Pragana, he had arrived over there and his name was Badruddin Sahib, Mullah Badruddin Sahib. He was a very astounded and very highly respected priest of the Muslims and was very much respected by the uh, king also. And he had arrived at the congregation at the same place where all the Vaishnavas had assembled with his 50 disciples and students, and they were all on their horses. And then they got down and settled down under a banyan tree outside the place where all these Vaishnavas had assembled. And the doorkeeper said that he has invited the one of the prominent Vaishnavas amongst you because he wants to do some spiritual discussions. So somehow or the other, these Vaishnav reluctantly uh, went over there, and they chose among themselves as to who would represent and who would do the talking with the this mullah Badruddin Sahib and his team of 50 disciples, and four people among the Vaishnavas were chosen, and their name was Gorchand Das of Mayapur, and then Vaishnav Das Pandit Babaji of Sri Godurma, and Prem Das Babaji of Jahanu Nagar, and Kalipavana Das Babaji of Champahata, and they all started to meet the mullah and have a discourse with him. And other people, all the other Vaishnavas who had assembled over there, they were allowed to witness as to what is going on. They could see what is going on, what discussions were taking place. So the meeting on this took place under the banyan tree outside the this Natya Mandir where they had all assembled. So Pandit Gorchandra was the one who did maximum talking, who did most of the uh, conversation with the mullah. The mullah asked around about 7 questions I have taken for this particular session. He asked 7 questions, and all the questions were answered beautifully by Vaishnav Gorchand Babaji. The first question which was asked by mullah was, he said, "We want to know why you Vaishnavas have not given up the worship of material forms, although you are expert in the decisions of the Shastras." To this, Gorchand Babaji says, "He whom you refer as Allah, we refer as Bhagwan. So the Supreme Lord is one. But there is a limitations to what you refer to as Allah. He has limitations in your assessment of what he is. But our Bhagwan is to be addressed is much more than what you perceive as Allah. You perceive Allah that there is nobody superior to him. We perceive Bhagwan Ji as there is nobody superior to him. He is one only, but there is nobody who is even inferior to him. He is the minutest of the minutest person also. He has all the qualities. So he has much more qualities than your uh, Allah. And particularly, Gorchand Babaji emphasized the 6 opulences of Bhagwanji. 6 opulences, as we have earlier read in our other spiritual classes. And these are, I will just repeat them. And these are the first characteristics of Bhagwanji is the complete Ashwarya, opulence, which refers to the ultimate limit of greatness and minuteness also. Very, very important. The Muslims or the Allah, when they discuss, they do not talk about the minuteness of the powers of Bhagwan. Here, Bhagwan Ji is the greatest of great, and he is the minutest of the minutest. That is the Ashwarya characteristics of Bhagwan Ji. Okay. The second characteristics of Bhagwan Ji is Achinta Shakti. Ishwarya cannot have a form of rejection of Achinta Shakti by which Bhagwan manifests himself. Okay. The second characteristic is that he is the most powerful. Because he possesses all the Shaktis. And the third characteristic of Bhagwan is that he is always Mangalmaya, auspicious, and Yashpur, all famous. His fourth characteristic is that he possesses all beauty, Saundarya, and all living beings who are endowed with transcendental vision see him as the most beautiful person. And his fifth characteristic is that he has limitless knowledge. अपूर्व अपूर्व ज्ञान है उनमें. This means he is a pure, complete, omnipotent, and transcendental to mundane matters. His form is very embodiment of consciousness and is beyond all material elements. And his last or the sixth characteristic is that even though he is the master and controller of all jivas, he is unattached, nirlep, and independent, swatantra. These are the Bhagwan's six elementary and primary characteristics. And to this, the Babaji, Gorchand Babaji, he adds something more. He says the Bhagwanji has two manifestations also. His features are of Ashwarya, or he is a most majestic person, and his feature of Madhurya or sweetness is also there. So both Krishna Bhagwanji and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they are what you call storehouse, and in abundance they have this sweetness and madhurya. And this is what they had come to this planet to spread: sweetness, prem. This is what they had come. And the dharma of the Vaishnav is to worship the fully conscious eternal deity form of Bhagwanji. Right? So they see Bhagwanji who has all these six characteristics in that deity also, because there has been pran pratishtha done, a ritual done where they invoke the life into the uh, deity. So it is as good as the real Bhagwanji who has manifested himself in that deity form. So the dharma of the Vaishnava is to worship the full conscious eternal deity of Bhagwanji. Therefore, idolatry or Buddh, right? In the Parsi, it is called Buddh, idol. The idolatry is not part of the Vaishnava doctrine. Please remember, this is the backbone of this chapter. Idolatry is not the doctrine of the Vaishnavas. One should clearly understand that the Vaishnava worship of the deity is not idolatry. Now, moving on to the second question by Mullah. He says about the Buddha. The worship of the Buddha or idol is not worship of the Supreme Being. He says, please tell me more about this viewpoint of yours. He asks Gorchand Babaji Vaishnavas. To this, Gorchand Babaji replies to this second question that worshipping Buddha or deity is prescribed under the Vaishnava. It is fully conscious. It has full life. It is not an idol. प्राण प्रतिष्ठा हो चुकी हुई है उनमें. The rituals have been done, the ceremony has been done, and that deity is as good as a reflection of Bhagwanji himself, who is standing in the altar over there. And to this, Gorchand Babaji finally further says, even when such people meditate on the Lord within their minds, the form that they imagine is material. When you worship inside, you also picturize that Bhagwanji looks like this. And when it is manifested outside, it is the same deity which you see inside when you meditate. So that is the deity, and there is nothing wrong in worshipping the deity. This he explained to Mullah. Okay, so going further, Korchand Babaji says the deity form is always chinmay, spiritual and conscious. It's a living. It is spiritual, chinmay. For those who are in the highest platform of eligibility. So he has characterized three types of deities. Three types of devotees. The senior most people, they consider the deity form as chinmay, spiritual, conscious. Then there are the intermediate or the middle level people. They see the deity with perception and awareness. This means that the intermediate devotee has faith in the deity, is conscious of his thoughts and prayers, and accepts his mood of worship. However, there's a difference. However, The intermediate devotee, unlike the advanced devotee, does not directly perceive the deity as the spiritual, all conscious form of Bhagwan. This is the difference. The intermediate devotee does not consider the deity as the spiritual form or reflection of Bhagwanji. That is the difference. But he believes in the presence of awareness about Bhagwanji. But he does not consider them. He is only aware of it. He does not consider the deity to be a reflection of Bhagwanji. Then comes the lowest form of devotees. The lowest form of devotee initially sees the deity as a material made up of sand, water, cement, and other ingredients to make a deity or Buddha. He does not believe it to be a Bhagwan. He just has a spiritual love for it. The deity form of Bhagwan is certainly accepted both by the senior most, by the intermediate people, and by the lowest level people also. The lowest level of people, he does not believe in him. But since he sees that other people are also worshipping him, so he also follows their footsteps. And with passage of time, this lowest level person also, he has an association of the senior most devotees or bhaktas. And he also starts believing in the deity worship. So to conclude, all the three levels of devotees, they believe and they certainly want the deity worship to continue. So this is the answer given to the Mullah Badruddin Sahib. Remember, Mullah is a very, very senior most priest of the Muslims, and he's very, very respectable in his society. And he is one of the beloveds of the king also, of the Muslim king. Okay, now going further, in expression to this, our Gorchand Babaji, he supports his statement of worshipping the deity by saying that the Jivatma is covered by the material mind, and this state he cannot know himself as render service to Paramatma. However, by performing sadhana bhakti, very important, along with the deity worship, he does the sadhana bhakti, and then all the material unnecessary things which are covering his Jivatma or the soul, they are gradually removed by doing sadhana bhakti. And gradually, he distances himself from the deity worship and he starts worshipping the Paramatma sitting inside. But the invoking, the start is from the deity. That is the one where the inspiration came from. So it's very, very important that the deity worship should continue. So this is what he says over there. And then he gives the example of a prisoner. Now, a prisoner who has been jailed, who is kept behind the bar, he wants to get free. No, he cannot get free. He cannot attain freedom. What he has to do, he has to remove all the elements or activities or tasks which he had done, which prompted him to do a sin or crime. He has to remove all those thoughts and activities and become a normal citizen. Right? So similarly, even a bhakta also has to achieve, he's targeting to achieve happiness. So for this, all the inclination to have material things for sense gratifications and going towards more and more towards spirituality, all those things have to start. Then only he can achieve the ultimate goal of reaching the abode of Bhagavad. So just like a prisoner has to work hard to get freedom, similarly, but the Jeev, who is surrounded by material things and sense gratifications and liking for that, who has distanced himself from Bhagwan Ji, he has to work hard. He has to work hard in his sadhana bhakti and then reach the abode of Krishna Bhagwan Ji. So this is the reply given by Gurchand Babaji. He then comes the third question of Mullah. He says, isn't meditating on a form of Lord within one's mind, परमात्मा जो अंदर है, isn't meditating on him superior to imagining a form that is material elements or what we call deity worship? Isn't worshipping the Paramatma sitting inside superior to deity worship? This is what his the third question is. So this Gurchan Babaji says, imagine worshipping Brahma Bhagwan, Brahma. Now, whenever we think of worshipping Bhagwan or Brahma, we think of immediately a space, a sky that he is living over there, and then there is limitations over there, that there is nothing beyond the sky, etc. He's somewhere over there. And similarly, when we do the meditation, we imagine the Brahmaji sitting inside Bhagwanji. And then as soon as the meditation is over, the time for meditation is over, we come back to our normal material sense gratifications. So there is a limitation of time and space of sky and time as long as we are worshipping and meditating. But there is a limitation of time and space with respect to worshipping the Bhagwanji or the Brahma. So similarly over here also, there is limitations to the worship of the non-form of Bhagwanji. You cannot achieve the eternal goal by not imagining that there is a form of Bhagwanji. This is where ultimately Gorchand Babaji comes back to answer the question of Mullah. There has to be a form, there has to be a deity, there has to be a material existence which will give you inspiration, which will arise the bhav to reach Bhagwanji by seeing the deity form. So it's very, very essential over here. Here, he finally says, no material object can support one's attainment of the transcendental goal. The only thing that facilitates this is the awakening of the inclination towards Ishvara. This inclination within the Jivatma is gradually strengthened and converted into bhakti when one utters the name of God, recites his pastimes, and receives inspiration from beholding the deity form or Shri Vigraha. So his faith in Bhagwanji becomes strengthened, it becomes stronger and stronger when he gets inspiration by seeing the Shri Vigraha or the deity form. The Lord's spiritual form can be experienced only by pure bhakti. Please remember that. The Lord's spiritual form can be experienced only by pure bhakti and not by gyan or karma. Okay. You cannot imagine and worship Bhagwanji who does not have a form. This is ultimately what Gorchan Babaji wants to say. Now, coming back to the fourth question, there are total 7 questions. Coming back to the fourth question, and here he says, matter is the distinct from God. I think that it is better not to worship matter object or material object. बुद्ध को worship नहीं करो, idol को worship नहीं करो, because it is said that Satan is a word used by the Muslims. And because it is said that the Masal, Satan, Shaitan, we call it Shaitan, Satan, Shaitan. It is said that Shaitan introduced the worship of material or deity to keep the living entities bound in this material world. So this Gautam Babaji says that Bhagwan is one. He is most powerful. He controls everything. He controls even the shaitan people also, the people who do not follow on the guidelines of what is mentioned in the scriptures. A shaitan cannot work anything against the will of Bhagwan Ji. He is fully under the control of Bhagwan Ji. And to this, Gorchand Babaji gives an example of committing sin and not committing sins. He says, he gives the example of Vidya or knowledge. When a person has Vidya or knowledge about Bhagwan Ji, of worshipping Bhagwan Ji, of doing bhakti, he does not commit any sin. Only he commits sin like that of a shaitan when he is fully in avidya. He does not have the knowledge of Bhagwan, the all-powerful. So it is better to be on the line of vidya to gain knowledge about Bhagwan Ji. Then a person will not commit any sin. Then he will not become a shaitan. So this is the answer given by Gorchan Babaji to Mullah's question about shaitan starting this material worshipping. He says, no, it is shaitan cannot control the things. Ultimately, the control is with the Bhagwan Ji, and shaitan cannot do anything against the will of Bhagwan Ji. Then we come to the fifth question of Mullah. He says, the inclination toward God cannot be stimulated by worship of the deity, because the mind of one performs such worship always remains confined to the properties of matter. Now he's talking of that when you are worshipping a deity, you are worshipping the contents of the matter, matter meaning the cement, the powder, or the earth, and the stones, and marble, or whatever the deity is made up of. You are all the time focusing on that. To this, Gorchan Babaji says, the irrevocable conclusion is that of satsang. Satsang is the root of all spiritual advancement. And this is the defect in your theory of all the historical counts which you people have been talking of. Many people began the worship of the deity while they were beginners, and then they became very, very advanced devotees. People who started worshipping deities, then with the help of satsang, with the help of bhakti, and with the help of association of the devotees, they advanced. They started with the deities, but with the help of the sadhusang and satsang, they advanced and got liberated. So, so this is not the thing that you are focusing on the matter which the deity is made up of. Deity gives the bhav, it gives the direction. It links the Paramatma sitting inside us and the Paramatma that is inside the deity, which has been invoked by performing the ceremony, Pran Pratishtha. The two link together, the Paramatma inside and the Paramatma inside the deity, they link together and the relationship starts. And then the bhav comes. This is what Gochan Babaji says over here. And then coming to the sixth question. In the sixth question, he says, there is no fault if one performs internal bhajan of Bhagwanji, the Paramatma living inside, and externally he engages in the worship of the deity. However, how can it be worship of God to worship a dog, a cat, a serpent, or a debauchee? Our revered Paigambar Sahib, he has condemned such worship of material objects. Now he is talking of why are you worshipping the dogs and the cats and the other debauchees and other forms of the serpents, Shivji ke serpent. Why are you worshipping snakes and all these things. To this, Bhagwan Gaurchand Babaji replies, very short form, but very, very meaningful, very beautifully explained by Gaurchand Babaji. He says all human beings are grateful to God, no matter how many sins they may have committed. Occasionally, they become aware that God is the supreme entity. And whenever they are endowed with this belief, they bow down, they do Dandavat Pranam before the extraordinary things of this world. And now, all the things created by Bhagwanji, they believe that Bhagwanji is the creator, he is behind the creation of this thing because they themselves are very much elevated in spirituality now. They are grateful to God and they see God in every living being and they start meditating. And meditation on the formless, all pervading feature of the Lord and offering nabas or other types of prayers to an impersonal aspect of the Lord are also devoid of pure transcendental love. When there is no form to whom you are worshipping, he says to the Muslim, our this mullah, he says, when you are worshipping a formless person, the transcendental love cannot come. And then this is no difference between worshipping a cat or a serpent or a dog or a debauchee. It is just similar. Only once you have the transcendental love and you see the God in the um, things before you, then only the bhav or the inspiration to do worship to Bhagwanji will come. So he says, we consider that it is essential to arouse bhav towards Bhagwanji by any means possible, by seeing a material thing, by seeing a non-material thing, but whatever it is, that is a bhav is coming to worship Bhagwanji, that is very, very essential to do bhakti. So we consider that it's essential to arouse bhav towards Bhagwanji by means, any possible means. The door leading to gradual elevation is firmly shut if people on any level of worship are insulted or condemned. If you start condemning our worshipping of the deity, I mean, it is not going to help. I mean, it is not going to help you people at any level of worship. And last question, the mullah asks. He says, okay, I have understood whatever you want to say. Thank you very much for that. But do we consider that God is everywhere? He is in everything. To this, our Gorchand Babaji explains, we do not say that God is everywhere. On the contrary, God is distinct from all these things. God creates and controls everything, and everything has a relationship with God. There is a thread of relationship between everything that you see around with God. All material and non-material things are created and controlled by Bhagwanji. And like this, he says, as one inquires, as you are asking these questions again and again, and this is what we call, and it is mentioned in our sutras, Jigyasa Aswadan Navadhi, meaning inquiry leads to experience. Keep on asking questions, and ultimately you will reach the abode of worshipping the deity form. And that will give you bhav, inspirations, and that will give you the feeling of having satsang, and that will give you what you call satsang inspirations, and then you will get elevated in Bhagwanji. So this is the crux of the meeting of the this mullah Muslims mullah and the Vaishnavas over there who had assembled over there on the invitation of that devotee merchant who had called all the Brahmins in the vicinity of 32 miles of Navadvip Dham, and they were all rejoicing and doing kirtan with mridang and katal and having tilak and doing harinam and singing and dancing everything. They were enjoying all those things. So this Gorchand Baba, after saying this, he says, we do not have much interest in discussing the material things which you are talking of. You will have to excuse us now because we want to go back to our kirtan and our other chanting what we were doing. And I hope that you have understood what we want to say. And to this, Mullah Sahib then ended the conversation. He thanked the Vaishnavas over there. He says, okay, I have been pleased to hear your point of view. On another day, I will return and inquire further. Now it is late and I wish to return home. So with this, the meeting came to an end. The Vaishnavas went back to the uh, altar or near the altar, the, where the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to have his kirtans. They went back to that place and started their kirtan once again. So with this, we come to the end of the chapter. Thank you very much for being with me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. My Danvat Pranam. My Danvat Pranam to Sri Bhakti Vinod Thakur ji, who has authored this book, Jaiv.